Welcome to the SwimSwam podcast. I'm your host, Coleman Hodges. Joining me today, head swimming coach at Army West Point, Brandt, Nigro. Brandt, what's up, man? How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you for having me.
I swam with a guy in high school who went to West Point. That is the only connection I have to West Point ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Did he
excited.
swim at West Point?
Say what?
Did he swim at West Point?
I think he did for a little while. His name is Michael
Okay.
Sheehan. It was
Okay.
it's a while ago, I think. But yeah, I'm excited to hear a little bit about your perspective. I met you when I came down to NC State a couple of years ago, and you were the assistant coach there. I'm excited to pick your brain about some stories with the pack and about your swimming history. Let's get started there. Tell me
Sounds good.
about your swimming roots, how you got into the sport, and how you got into coaching.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Bristol, Connecticut. Swam in Bristol, Connecticut, and some club teams in the area. And eventually going on to swim in college, I went to the College of Charleston, down in Charleston, South Carolina, which sadly was cut a few years ago. But post college, went back to Connecticut and got started in coaching so randomly. When I hung up, the Speedo and the goggles at the end of my college career, really had no intentions of getting involved in coaching, getting involved in swimming. I kind of had my piece of the sport and, was ready to go in a different direction. Mm-hmm. And I was working as a bartender, oddly, and to pay for my grad school. And I ran into a former teammate of mine from my high school swimming days. And he was like, "Hey, did you hear that, Bristol Eastern, which is, one of the schools that I went to when I was going through high school, has an opening for an assistant swim coaching position?" I'm like, "Oh, interesting." He's like, "Yeah, and it pays this much money." I'm like, "Whoa, that's some easy money. That's going to pay for almost a whole semester worth of grad classes." And so I jumped at that opportunity as a way to really just kind of help supplement some income, and stepped on pool deck on day one. And probably within the first 400 yards of that first practice, I realized that was something that spoke to me and connected to me deeper than probably anything I've ever been involved in. And, haven't looked back since. And really from that moment, did everything I could from a club perspective or a high school perspective or volunteering with colleges, and to really just learn as much as I could about the sport and about the career of a coach. And then kind of just went from there. And, it's been an incredible last few years and an incredible journey. And I'm definitely very lucky to have had that conversation as a bartender, 10, 15 years ago. So.
Yeah, sure. Looking at your resume, you have, you've been through the coach's journey. Obviously you're still on it, but as we all know in swimming, I think coaches, make a lot of different stops on their way to where they want to go, wherever that might be. You're in your first, D1 head coaching position, but you've been a lot of places on the way. A few highlights, again, as we said, you were an assistant at NC State. You made a stop at UMBC while Emily Escobedo was there, who I got the privilege to meet and spend some time with this past fall. Great person, great athlete. You've been quite a few places. So take me through that journey. When you first got that high school coaching position, where did you go from there?
Yeah. So, I stayed with that high school program through my grad school years, and eventually graduated and worked as a school psychologist actually in Connecticut for about seven years total, which is, looking back on it, I'm so glad for that experience. I think having that educational experience going through, a dual master's program where I'm really learning the psychological perspective, and then kind of growing up as a coach while going through that educational process, and really finding ways to connect what I was learning in school, what I was doing in the school setting with the the students that I was working with, but then also being on pool deck as a coach. It really kind of tied things together, I think, in a really meaningful way for me, and to kind of shape who I am as a coach. But yeah, so, I kind of worked up the ladder as a high school coach, eventually becoming a head coach of a high school team. But I got to a point where I was having some success with my swimmers, but because I was tied to a full-time job in the school setting, I'd have kids going to, Y nationals or sectional meets or future meets, and I couldn't go because I had to be at work. So I'd send them with other coaches. And I got to the point where I was like, that's what I want to be doing. That's where I want to be. And it's as much as I love the job as a school psychologist and I would not go back and undo that, I wanted to be with my swimmers. I wanted to be part of that process. And, and I had the opportunity to work at the Eastern Zone Select Camp. One year I was selected by USA Swimming to be one of the coaches at the Select Camp, and it just so happened to be at UMBC. And when I went there, I met Chad Craddock, the head coach. And again, I think success is often through hard work, but also timing. And when I met Chad, it just so happened that one of the assistants on the staff that week was stepping down. And by the end of the week, I had a really good connection with him. And as he drove me back to the airport, I said, look, if you have any interest in possibly talking about me coming and joining your staff here at UMBC, let me know, because I think it would be an amazing opportunity. I'd love to work for you. And 2 weeks later, I got a phone call, and then that really kind of just took me from there. And then again, being at the right place at the right time, with Emily Escobedo being a member of the UMBC. So we got to go to NCAs, each of the years that I was there. I mean, we almost, finished in the top 25 at NCAs, which was just amazing. So I definitely had some good luck, but I also, worked really hard and made some really good connections and learned from some of the best coaches out there. And that kind of what took me in my journey. And then eventually going to Marshall University, where I had the opportunity to work with the sprint group there and coach a young lady named Serena Rowe, who now is at NC State. And our 1 year there, she probably what I would call the most improved swimmer in the NCAA. She dropped almost 1.3 seconds in the 50 free and went from a really good swimmer to one of the best sprinters in the country and maybe even in the world. And, qualifying for NCAAs there, and it just kind of rolled itself into an opportunity to be at NC State and things like that. So it's been an interesting journey for sure.
Yeah. Tell me about your time at Marshall. How did you only spend 1 year there as well?
Yeah, it was 1 year. And it was it was a move that I had to make for my professional, but it was tough on my family. My wife was actually in grad school in Baltimore still, because she had started it when we were at UMBC, and basically partway through, it was a situation where, I had this opportunity to go to Marshall, which I needed to do from a professional standpoint, but it was really hard because, she was commuting back and forth from West Virginia to Baltimore. It's not an easy drive.
Sure.
And so, that 1 year, I put everything I could into it, and my wife is insanely supportive and loving, and is big of a fan of my coaching as anybody in the world. And, but after that 1 year, I think again, the timing was right. And, through my journeys, I made some really good connections with Braden and Bobby Cantoro down at NC State. And again, timing was everything. And just so happened that's when Todd took the job at UVA, and there was a spot open on the NC State staff. And Bobby wanted somebody that can come and work with female sprinters. And again, it just so happened to be the right time. And so I got that call. And never forget that time where I got this call, from Braden and Bobby asking me to come join their staff at NC State. It was ridiculous. I had to pinch myself to make sure I wasn't, dreaming kind of thing. And so that kind of, that took me there. And obviously, working the opportunity to work with Braden and his staff and learn from them and be around that team you can't put a price on it. It's an unbelievable experience.
Yeah. What do you feel like you gained from that 1 year, even for coaches? That's a fairly quick stop. What do you feel like you gained from that 1 year working with those sprinters, especially with Serena?
At Marshall or with NC State?
At Marshall.
At Marshall? I think that was my first opportunity to really kind of just explore my ideas and my my philosophies at the college level, and really to kind of do what I want, what I thought was best. And so really just kind of getting to know them. And that's where some of my previous connections, like I had spent a lot of time talking with Bobby on the phone and Braden on the phone and even Todd DeSorbo on the phone. And, hey, what do you do with your sprinters? How do you develop the underwater dolphin kick? What do you do to, for this perspective? And then that gave me that opportunity with really talented, hardworking young ladies to put some of those ideas into practice. And I mean, that for me as a young coach, that stop, changed the game for me for real. And then I think from there, again, it's just opening the doors, because I think there's a lot of young coaches out there that have a lot of skills and have the drive, and they just need to make sure they make those connections and are patient enough for when that opportunity arises to be ready for it. And I think that's kind of what happened with me in my situation there at Marshall that, kind of rolled into NC State and then beyond.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about NC State. I'm guessing you might have a few fun stories from your stop there. You were there for 2 years. But yeah, once you actually get to Raleigh and get on campus, how did that experience differ from, let's say, a Marshall?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference from NC State, from anywhere else that I've ever coached, is the the belief in the freedom to try to do things in a different way. Braden, I think from day one at NC State, and I was a huge NC State fan long before I even got involved into college swimming, watching Braden, what he did and what he did there. It's just inspiring and it's fun to watch. You kind of become like a junkie of, oh man, what are they going to do next kind of thing. And being on deck and being in that environment where, the normal rules and the normal ways of training and thinking and even team building, kind of go out the window, and you kind of have that confidence and that freedom to do things a different way. And I think that's a lot of how I coach, which is what kind of why I connected so well with them and got that opportunity. I think they saw a lot of my skills matching what they like to do. I don't even know if I answered your question directly there. I kind of rambled a little bit. Sorry.
No, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Do you have one or two favorite stories from your time at NC State?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, there's so many favorites, like in terms of just moments. I think, looking back on my first year going to NCAs and watching Anton Itzen win the mile, I think, it was like a 15-minute party. It was just like the most energy I've ever seen a group of athletes and coaches just celebrate. I mean, that was such a big moment for the program and for Braden and also Gary Taylor at the time, who was leading that. I remember that race. I mean, it was just like a mosh pit for 800 yards of celebration, like when he was throwing down. Yeah. So definitely remember that. And I think ACCs in, I guess that would be 2019 when our women kind of fought back and beat UVA in a back and forth match. Was probably my most exciting, my favorite moment, and really just the way the girls came together in that moment, and really performed and stepped up and did, and not just in the pool, but like on the board as well. It was just an amazing family effort, and I think that's definitely something that stands out. In terms of fun, I've never played so much spike ball in my life. That was something that we did there pretty religiously, and that was always a good time. But again, it was this combination of putting your heart and soul into what you do as professional, but also being able to have fun and relax and enjoy the moments and enjoy each other, which now as a head coach, I'm trying to instill here with what we're doing as a team and as a staff and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about West Point. How did you end up there? What inspired you to leave a program like NC State to go and try to lead somewhere like Army?
Yeah, I think there was a number of factors. Like I said before, I'm originally from Connecticut, and the coaching journey is a necessary part of climbing that ladder and getting yourself out there and making those connections. But I did have a sense of wanting to get back closer to home, where family and friends. My wife is also from Connecticut, and there's a lot of holidays that we weren't able to be with family because we were elsewhere, and with the world of swimming and winter training trips or winter, training where you can't necessarily go home and visit for a week because you got to be back for practice and things like that. It got tough. So I think there was that personal, appeal to it where, it allowed me to get back to my roots a little bit. But then beyond that, I've had the opportunity through my club and club coaching days to coach a number of swimmers that went through the West Point swimming and diving program. And as recently as of 2019, one of the team captains was a kid that I coached when he was in high school. And when that opportunity presented itself, I think I got a call from him before the job was even posted. He's like, "Hey, coach, everything that you've done for me and what you did to prepare me for West Point, I think this would be an amazing opportunity." And he kind of sold me on not just what the program could do, but like West Point in general, because it's a really incredible university. I mean, there's so many things here that I think people in general don't necessarily know as much about. But it's really an amazing journey. So as I was going through the process and learning about that and learning about the academic side of things and learning about the professional opportunities that this place provides for its graduates, and then from an athletic standpoint, seeing the facilities and seeing the resources and the fact that like we had almost everything that a Power 5 school has, and then we have all the other perks of almost an Ivy League education and things that come along with the West Point experience. It really spoke to me as a place that really was a sleeping giant that had so much potential.
I mean, so it sounds like a pretty nice place. What was that interview process like? What, once you found all this out, how excited were you to get that job, and what was kind of what were your first orders of business once you were finally the head coach?
Yeah, I think, the interview process, West Point's unfair because the second you step on campus, like it's love at first sight. We always say, even when we're recruiting now, it's like if we get them on campus, it's pretty much over, because you step on campus and with the Hudson and the hills, and just the history and the feel of this place it's electric. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. You almost feel like you're not in the United States when you're on campus here, just the look of it all. So I woke up that morning for my interview and looked out my hotel window. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, honey, come look. And we had a hotel that was right on the Hudson River. And I was like, yeah, this might already be over at this point. But, the interview process was amazing. I think, beyond all the things that come along with West Point, you're surrounded by amazing people. The kind of people that come to West Point, not just as cadets, but also the staff members and people you get to work with. Are really incredible people. So I think that made me feel really comfortable and supported. And I felt like I was going to be in a situation where, as long as I did everything I could and worked as hard as I could, that we could really, do something special here. And we had a brand new AD. It's kind of ironic. The old AD from West Point actually took the AD job at NC State. And then I came up to West Point after that. But anyway, so we had a brand new AD, and I was actually his first hire as his new role as a head athletic director here at West Point. And, it just clicked really well. He very supportive, and on board with all of our goals and the visions that we have for this program. And he's kept his word and has been very supportive ever since. So it just felt right. And I think when I got here, I was very fortunate to have a, kind of like a holdover from the previous staff in Jacob Sire, who just so happens to be a graduate from NC State. So we have that connection in terms of, the way we think as coaches, what we think of in terms of team culture and team chemistry and the energy you want to bring on a pool deck every day. He swam for Braden for a couple of years and was a team captain. So, I mean, he's has that same background that I have. And so that clicked really well. And to know that he was going to be on my staff made that, that transition pretty exciting, but also much easier. Mm-hmm. And then I was able to, hire a really good staff. That had to be the first order of business, because the hiring was pretty late. I didn't really start here until the team was already about 2 or 3 weeks into practice. So it was a late hire, and it was a weird transition, mm-hmm. In terms of that. And then to make matters even more interesting, I got married 2 weeks after I took the job, and my wedding was down in North Carolina because we were living there. We're like, hey, let's just get married in North Carolina and make everybody come to us. And then we ended up having to fly to our own wedding. So
sure.
So it was an interesting first month, but I think putting a strong staff in place was really my first order of business.
Mm-hmm. And this was the fall. This was just last fall, correct?
Yeah. Just so I'm on my 13-month anniversary right now. So
okay.
Yeah, it's been a quick, weird first year, especially considering you're going through that first year transition, and you're like, okay, got through the first year. Now we can kind of really get to connecting with the athletes and really build the culture we want. And then COVID hits, and then we're in quarantine for the next 6-7 months. So
right.
It was a quick transition, and then COVID. So it's been an interesting first 13 months for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. So take me through that first season. How do you feel like it went? What were some of the ups and downs that you experienced, especially as a first year head coach?
Yeah, I think, when you take over a program, even when you're doing things the right way and the way they should be done to move the program in the direction that it needs to go in, you're exposing people that are used to X, Y, and Z to new ideas and new schedules and new practice styles. And so I think that it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of teaching. It's a lot of being patient and really explaining what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I think along with that, obviously you're not just in your mode where you're just cruising along and training hard. You really have to stop and reset and teach, and make those connections. It's there's always a lot of excitement around a new hire, but then when the dust settles, it's like, okay, well, now we got to, get to know each other, and we have to figure out what works for you and how my coaching can connect with what you're doing. And then it wasn't just for me, it was an entire new staff other than Jacob. So, it was a lot of that. But I think overall the season went really well. And I think the team has learned kind of what we expect and where we're going and why we're doing the things that we're going to be doing. And I think we're in a really good spot now. I think we utilized the COVID quarantine time to really get to know each other, even if it was done through phone calls or virtual meetings, to continue educating and connecting. And so I think we're in a really good spot, and whatever happens this season happens, but the future is definitely where we're in the right direction at this point.
Sure. I mean, as a coach, you sent the kids home in March, I'm guessing, during the COVID, and then during the COVID shutdown. And then did you not see them in person until August? Are they on campus now? What was your situation like for the shutdown?
Yeah, so we had our last practice, and had our team cheer, and then I was like, all right, I'll see you guys Monday for next week's workout, and then things just unraveled quick, like it did everywhere, and they pretty much all dispersed and went home after that, and I did not see really anybody on the team other than some of the staff members in person until probably late July. West Point was able to bring cadets back in waves, so they could do some of their summer trainings and things like that. So they started coming back, and I wasn't able to see them, when they first got back here, because they had the 2-week, quarantine and all that. But then I started seeing them in bits and pieces, and then eventually kind of got the whole team together starting in early August. Weren't able to get into full training by any means, but we were able to at least get back together and have outdoor meetings and kind of talk and connect and, kind of get back on the same page with each other. So, yeah, and the whole team, the whole school is back. That's one of the cool things about West Point in a situation like that is they can kind of monitor the coming and going of people a little bit easier than you can at a normal university. Mm-hmm. And so they're able to kind of protect the bubble a little bit better. So everybody's here, they have in-person classes. There's some hybrid and some online class options as well.
Sure.
But for the most part, it's everybody's back, and it's kind of business as usual, if you will.
Gotcha. And how big is West Point?
West Point is about a little less than 5,000 students.
Okay.
So it's about 1,200 or so per class. And so it's not huge by any means, but it's a good size. So
it seems like a good COVID size for sure.
Yeah.
I'm in Columbia, Missouri, and Mizzou is a little bigger than that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
um, but so that's yeah. Again, that seems like a nice size for where we're at in history right now. But in terms of you guys, in terms of the swim team, are you guys kind of back to normal as well? Are you able to practice? What is your practice schedule looking like?
Yeah, so we are back in the water training. I was able to work out of things. So and this is NCAA rules and whatever, but we were able to move our season start date up a little bit so we could get going a little sooner. So as of August 31st, we were back in season. So we were, we're back in a normal practice schedule, but because of social distancing and splitting the team, we're really only able to do one practice per day. So we're not back to, doubles by any means. And we're really taking this opportunity to kind of reset and patiently build back up. So we're doing a lot of skill work, a lot of drills, a lot of introducing the team to, or reintroducing the team to our training philosophies and things that we want to, really incorporate into this year, rather than just being like, oh, we got to get back in shape and really, burning them out before we really need to get to that point. So we're taking our time. And then prior to August 31st, they were able to do some optional swims on their own. So we weren't able to coach per se, but the pool was open. They could come in, and the team did a really good job of taking advantage of those opportunities to get in and train.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of teams right now are in kind of similar places in terms of, easing back in, not able to do their normal practice schedule. I'm sure a lot of people, if you could share a couple specifics on drills, skills, or, just how are you guys relearning things right now? I'm sure a lot of club coaches, college coaches are looking for similar ideas.
Yeah. So we are, the way we split up here, and again, it's kind of to help protect the students a little bit more through contact tracing, is basically their training groups are split up based on what dorms they live in and whatnot. So it has nothing to do with, hey, sprinters over here and butterflyers over here. So we're just mixed in men and women, regardless of events. We're all doing the same thing right now. And again, that's twofold: one, to reset from a physical standpoint, but also just to get the team intermingled and just connected at a deeper level. And so we're really breaking it down where, each day, regardless of if you will ever touch breaststroke in your entire competitive career here, we got a breaststroke day, and everybody's, learning the breaststroke drills and the common things that we'll do with our breaststrokers. And we're really focusing on each stroke. So we have a butterfly, we start each week with freestyle. We go free, then breast, then back, and then fly. And then we have a little IM day. And then we end the week with a good freestyle swim kick set. And everybody's doing that. So, and I'm really, I like the way it's going. And honestly, I think looking back, or looking forward, regardless of COVID, I want to kind of start seasons like this from now on, because I just think the IM training is a really good way to kind of put some cross training into your swimming, so that you're working all the muscles and learning your body awareness and getting comfortable, doing breaststroke pullouts and being underwater and things like that you might not typically do. And I think it's a good way to just get back into the swing of things and just feel comfortable in the water again. And then as the weeks roll out, then the training will become a little bit more intense. We're doing a lot of underwater work because we're not trying to tax them too hard in terms of swimming efforts. So we're, holding our breath a little bit more and doing some underwater dolphin kick and a lot of fish kick drills and things, again, just trying to get their body awareness and, the rhythm back into the aquatic rhythm, if you will, back into their body. So.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds like, I always liked that time of season. It sounds cool. I think it's, a blessing in disguise that because of this pandemic, lots of teams have been able to kind of take a step back. Swimmers have been able to take weeks and or months away from the pool, and it seems like, you don't really lose as much as you might have otherwise thought.
Yeah.
Which is
and it's interesting. And a lot of the athletes that we worked a lot with technique last year,
Mhm.
And they just, they got some of it, but weren't able to necessarily completely process it and put it into their everyday stroke. It's like something with what happened in quarantine, like connected those synapses, and they're hopping in the water and we're resetting. And I'm like, you look better than you did at any point last year, at least from a technique standpoint. And so, you got to kind of have to play the cards you were dealt. And so we're making the best of this. And honestly, I think from our perspective, we're really excited about what this is allowing us to do as a staff and as a team.
Definitely. Yeah. So to wrap our conversation up, kind of moving forward, the next, obviously who knows what's happening moving forward. There's a lot of uncertainty, but for you personally, as the head coach of your team, the next couple weeks, next couple months, what's your goal or goals short term? What are you looking forward to? What are you looking for from your staff and your team?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we want to just continue to get to know the program, because we still, are technically new here. And so we want to continue to build those relationships and really make the connections with the athletes. We want to continue to teach and expand what we want to bring to this program and have them learn it. But in a way that we can do it patiently without being like, oh my God, we have a meet in 3 weeks. We need to scrap everything and just start training. So I, really take our time to do things the right way and set that tone in the culture, and then start to get the competitive juices flowing. We're going to do a number of inter squad and time trial type of situations where we're in the process of organizing several virtual meets with different teams around the country. Again, just to keep that edge and to connect what we're doing in practice to something that they can see in terms of a race and a time and things like that. And then, hopefully by the end of the semester, we have a few meets on our schedule that still haven't been canceled. So if late November and December rolls around, fingers crossed, we can, stick with it. We should have some real and some pretty good competition at the end of the semester, and then definitely beyond. But, we're not in a rush to get there. We know we have a lot of time, and we're being patient with it.
Gotcha. Well, Brandt, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and chat with me a bit and giving me some perspective on Army West Point and the coach's journey. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And if you ever are up in the area, we have an amazing breakfast restaurant, that phenomenal pancakes. So you could do your pancakes in practice right here in West Point.
Yeah, you know what I like, you know what I'm about. I'm excited to get back on the road again for sure. Once I can. And it's you sold me with the Hudson in the Hills view. I Googled it while you were talking about it, and it looks pretty great. So
yeah, it's amazing.
I'm sure the pancakes are just as good.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you very much. It's been fun. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.